All right. Well, good morning, all, both online and here in the chambers this morning. It is 9 o'clock on July 2nd, 2025. We'll call the meeting to order. As you're able, please rise and we'll sing the national anthem. Thank you. Before we begin, I want to recognize and acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land with whom we share today. The Township of Southgate is a part of the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations of the Grand, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Haudenosaunee, and the Saugeen Métis. The land that surrounds us is part of who we are as it reflects our histories. May we live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people. Madam Clerk, is there anyone registered for open forum?
None today, Mayor.
Thank you. I need a confirmation of the agenda as presented. Jim, Jason, any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any declaration of interest related to any item on today's agenda? Not seeing any. If one should arise during the course of the meeting, of course, you can declare it at any time. We have a public meeting this morning, so I'll call that to order. The file is C1125 for Edwin Frey, Concession 3, Lot 19, Geographic Township of Proton in the Township of Southgate. Would this be where I'd read the purpose? I apologize, I don't have the script in front of me. Yes, the purpose of the application is to rezone the subject lands to permit a dry industrial on-farm diversified use Class F3 shop. The proposal would rezone 6,500 square meters of the lot area to permit a shop with 675 square meters floor area, a 75 square meter power room, and a 350 square meter outdoor storage area. The effect of the rezoning is to permit a 750 square meter on-farm diversified use with 350 square meters outdoor storage with a 6,500 square meter section of the lot, or within the 6,500 square meter section of the lot. A new farmhouse and horse barn would be constructed that is not subject to the rezoning. Madam, here we go. Thank you so much. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, Mayor Milne, proper notice was given in accordance with the act. The sign was posted and notice was circulated.
Excellent. Thank you, Lindsay. I'll now ask our planner to review correspondence received from commenting agencies and any members of the public. Victoria, please.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay. Comments were received from Enbridge Gas, Historic Saugeen Métis, and the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, all of which had no concerns at this point. Township Public Works also indicated that safe access can be provided and a commercial entrance is required as well. And then there were some comments received from representatives of Six Nations of the Grand River. They request a minimum stage 1 archaeology assessment and an archaeological assessment report provided for their review and comments. As well, request that any archaeology that would proceed after stage 1 assessment have participation of Six Nations archaeological monitors as well. And that's all the comments received.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Any questions or discussion from council at this time? Okay, and I'll ask if the agent or applicant is present. Please identify yourself by stating your name for the record. Would you like to make any representation on your application? I do not see anybody online or in the chambers. So I'll ask if there's anyone present who'd like to make a submission in support of the application. And also, is there anyone that would like to make a submission in opposition to the application? Are there any further questions or discussion from members of council? Nope. Okay. So I guess that concludes our public meeting. I declare this public portion of the meeting adjourned at 9:05. That's got to be some kind of record. Thank you all. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, moving on. We have, I don't believe there's any, I guess we need a motion to adjourn that public meeting, do we? No? Okay, perfect. No delegations or presentations? Nope. Adoption of the minutes of the June 18th, 2025 council and closed session meetings as presented. Jason, Barb, any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Reports of municipal officers. We'll start with the finance department. We have a motion here regarding a loan for unfinanced capital, Victoria Street and the water tower. Kayla will be giving that report. I need a motion to put it on the floor. Jim, second by Joan. Thank you, Joan. Kayla, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. This report is asking for a bylaw to approve a loan through Infrastructure Ontario. And this was to replace the CIBC loan that we previously got last year and add the water tower and the other phase of Victoria Street. It should be noted that this doesn't mean that our loan is approved. We need this bylaw in order to finish our application.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions? Barb.
Thank you. And through you, just wanted to verify to Kayla, there's no penalty. If we get Infrastructure Ontario, there's no penalty for exiting the CIBC loan early, although it's probably about a year already. And it's about 0.5%, a little bit more than 0.5%. Did we get an estimate about how much we're going to save by doing that? It would be significant.
So to answer your first question, it was a 1-year term. So by the time everything works out, I believe that it'll work out that our 1-year term will end and then we'll take this one. We'll pay it out at the end of the 1-year term. As far as the savings, I don't have that calculation in front of me, and the interest rates do fluctuate. So we're not guaranteed that rate that's in there right now in the report. It'll be based on timing, but I mean, it's a little bit unpredictable, but we're thinking the sooner the better.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Kayla. Moving on to emergency services, we have a report here from the fire chief, request for aerial apparatus procurement. It's hard to say that. Barb will move that. Second. Jim. Welcome, sir. Morning.
Good morning, everyone. So during budget time, staff was asked to bring back some more information regarding an aerial apparatus. That's the point of this report here. Staff believe that we captured a lot of information, but we kind of hit a crossroads where we've been talking to apparatus companies, and you only can get so much information, where we're looking to hit that next step to use Canoe, which is less onerous than our other method that we do for procurement, where we have to come up with a tender, which is about 120 pages, and then send that out. And then all the apparatus companies have to come back, provide their spec, their drawing, and then match every single line item. By going through Canoe, it allows us to say, this is what the truck we're looking for. What is your price to each of the apparatus companies? And they can come back. It's a quicker turnaround. Our normal method usually takes over 30 days for the apparatus companies to do that, and they don't really like that too much. They're more moving towards the canoe method, which has been used by Meaford, Orangeville. Also allows us to get some of that data back a little bit quicker. But if council at that point chooses not to go with a aerial apparatus, then it's less work that we put on the vendors. So staff feels that's a little bit more fair. With this, we only can go so far with the apparatus companies currently because we're asking for pricing. They can't give us pricing until we know sort of when we're looking for delivery. They also don't know when we can be put in their queue. So the idea of this is to go out to the apparatus companies, come back with what their price is. Are they willing to lock in at a price, or is this company gonna add any additional cost to us? What is delivery time? Because we have no idea for that. Get some of that information and come back to council at that point with recommendations and how we are going to actually fund this. But this report does not mean anything that we're going to go purchase a ladder truck tomorrow. It's just for staff to go get more information. So
Maybe Friday.
maybe if you direct that, then sure. But
Very good. Are there any questions? Discussion, Barb?
Thank you. And through you, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I think that your report really did outline the challenges that we are facing today, but that we could face tomorrow. And we know that the ladder truck isn't going to get delivered on Friday. So we have to plan ahead. I'm grateful that this is the first step of the, building that into the capital budget and what the DCs we have currently and how that will all work out. Canoe is one of the organizations through the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. And if I'm not mistaken, it's not one stop shop. It's not a single source vendor. They're doing the legwork in advance and they have all those other opportunities. So just to be clear, this isn't a single source. We're going to buy it from Canoe. It's just that's where we're going to get the research from. And they have those vendors already lined up. So through AMO and that they've done the legwork in advance for that aspect of it. So I'm fully supportive of moving to the next step.
Thank you. Any other questions, discussion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Derek. Moving on to the planning department, we have a report here regarding a zoning bylaw amendment for C625 and OPA 2-25 regarding Ridgeview Lumber Incorporated. Someone care to move that, please? Jim, second by Monica. Victoria, is that your report?
Yep, that's back
Please.
to me.
Yep.
So you previously saw this at the May 7th council meeting. It was under staff report PL 2025-037. To just give a brief summary, the applicants for Ridgeview Lumber requested a zoning bylaw amendment and an official plan amendment under files C6 and OPA 2, which is official plan amendment number 7 for the township, to permit an OFDU to expand from 8,000 square meters to about 9,300 square meters for a maximum operating area, or from about 2 to 2.25% of the lot area. So council passed a resolution to support the county OPA, which was number 26, and directed that the rezoning and official plan amendment return for consideration once the county council approved OPA number 26. County council actually just passed that on June 26th. So we're bringing it back. We're recommending that council consider approval of today's bylaw to adopt township official plan amendment number 7, and then the associated zoning bylaw amendment as well, which required only minor changes to comply with the county OPA number 26, just some wording. If council passes the bylaw to adopt township OPA number 7, the county has final approval authority as well. So the zoning amendment would be in full force and effect the date of passage once OPA number 7 receives final county approval. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Victoria. Are there any questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. Sorry, Madam Clerk, were you going to add something? No? Okay, sorry. I thought you were reaching for your microphone. You're just reaching for your beverage. Good for you. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you, Victoria. Oh, there's more here yet. Fees and charges bylaw amendment, planning contingency fees. Someone care to move that report? Monica, would you move that? Thank you very much. Seconded by Jim. Good morning, Ken. Welcome.
Good morning, your worship, members of council. This report is pretty straightforward. We've run into some issues. We actually have a couple of these situations coming live where pre-consultations have occurred and engineering has been involved. So we've had Triton Engineering providing some assistance to applicants, which of course we need to cost recover. The fees currently collected for a pre-consultation don't include a contingency fee, so we then run the risk that the township would front that money to pay the invoice, but we may not get that money back from an applicant, particularly if they were to choose not to move forward with an application. And so we're suggesting that these contingency fees be added to the very specific applications we've noted. So a pre-consultation, a site plan alteration. We've also suggested that the fees be increased to 2,000 because we're seeing that in cases where there is Triton being involved and then legal fees for registration of documents, that the original 1,000 contingency fee isn't enough. It's actually going beyond that. So this is about mitigating risk that the county, or I should say the township, does not get those costs recovered.
Okay.
Happy to take questions.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions? Joan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everyone. So Ken, you're saying that we're actually paying Triton for these fees are being paid to them, but we're not really recovering them. So now we're going to set up something that we can recover the amount that was paid.
So through you, your worship, to you, Councillor John, we pay the fee up front and then seek to recover it. That's our process today. What I'm suggesting is that there is a risk to the township that so far we haven't run into this problem, but given the economic uncertainty that we're in, or if an applicant was to do a pre-consultation, that pre-consultation kind of indicate that they had a significant amount of work to do and then they decide, you know what, I'm not going to do it. If they were to get a bill from Triton, say a month or two later, or from us for those fees, there might be a chance that they not pay that. And so by putting the contingency fee in, we have that ability to recover that money. And then that person gets back whatever we don't use. If we ask, if they pay 2,000 and we only charge 500, then they would eventually get back 1,500.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Joan. Any other questions? Ken, I have a question. What constitutes, in broad terms, consultation? Somebody calls Ken and asks a couple questions about the hypothetical, I want to do a consent. I want to do a severance on my property. You talk through where it is, what the chances, that kind of thing. Is that pre-consultation? And we charge for that?
Through your worship, no, there's some general conversation that happens when, say, Victoria or myself receive a phone call. This is when we gather together the team as a group to go over the situation, because there might be some unique circumstances where, for instance, we've had these situations come up in recent consents where it took a while for us to realize that there's Planning Act legislation that kind of gives you need to be mindful of, but not necessarily conform to. So the only time we charge these fees is when it's a formal meeting that we go and bring together, say, the county. That would then include engineering and public works and a whole bunch of others. If it's just a quick phone call, then no.
Excellent. I wouldn't want to lose that ability for people to call and
No, and I'll just add, we always caveat our comments on the phone that, you don't have, This is not a guaranteed approval. That
course.
the only way you know that you've got an approval is actually to come here and either have committee of adjustment or council render a decision. So
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Barb?
Thank you. And through you, as just in follow-up to your question, it's at the point that the application is submitted. So I agree with the mayor is that it's great to have those initial conversations because it won't waste everybody's time if they don't proceed. But once the application is, submitted, that's when the fees get added on, right? Because there's a little box on there.
So through your worship, I'll give you a hypothetical. So myself or Victoria receive a phone call. We have an initial consultation or conversation, I would say. The person wants a bit more to it and has questions about, let's say it's a lot within Dundalk that's serviced. So then we schedule a pre-consultation, but we won't actually have the pre-consultation until we invoice them the fee and they pay for that. So that would be when we would receive the fees and schedule the pre-consultation. And then the meeting would occur. And then there's a follow-up document that we prepare that is, I guess you would call the minutes of the meeting, that kind of spell out the issues that were discussed and the process to move forward. And then if council adopts what we're proposing, included with that invoice starting effective today would be the contingency fee. And so then once we get invoice from Triton for their participation, if that occurs, then we would have a contingency fee to take that money from. The other thing I'll mention, as I noted in the report though, is that let's say an applicant pays the 2,000 fee, we only use $500. If they move forward with a planning application and give us a letter, our finance staff have indicated that yes, they will move the unused portion of the fees from one application to another if they provide us a letter. And that could then reduce the additional contingency fees that they would have to pay.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Renewable energy project updates. Who would like to move this one? Jim, thank you. Second. Monica, thank you. Victoria, Ken?
Bill will be presenting.
Oh, Bill. Oh, there he is. Welcome, Bill.
Good morning, Mayor Milne, members of council and staff. This renewable energy proposal is following up on an April 2024 report. At council's direction, staff did some research along with Triton's assistance on what might be good policies to prepare for a number of inquiries that were being received at that time regarding battery energy storage and wind turbines, some of which moved to the point of being public and most of which did not, and ended up reaching a change of heart at the provincial government in terms of how things were going to proceed and new announcements under provincial planning policy. So our first report was in April of 2024. It outlined draft official plan and zoning provisions that would be considered for renewable energy. Again, the official plan would set a general policy framework for where they might be permitted, and the zoning would put in place more detailed requirements. Council did hear in that report, and it's subsequently been confirmed in a number of situations, that you do have full Planning Act approval authority over these kinds of applications. The province has issued a number of statements over time about where they think they should be allowed. And so this policy and this zoning change is very much preparing for what we expect to be another IESO procurement to come forward very soon. The public planning meeting was held in August of 2028. August 26th, we received a memo from the county, and there was also Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority comments. The county ones were more substantive than others, and part of this report addresses those. made some changes to the official plan amendment and the zoning provisions to reflect the county concerns. In October of 2024, so we had our April 2024 report. We had the Public Planning Committee meeting. At that same day, there was a provincial statement on renewable energy made. And then in October, there was changes to provincial policy that encourage energy storage and renewable energy systems to help address the projected need. So I guess what I would be saying is that since we started this initiative at council's direction back last year in the last spring, between now and then, there's been a lot of change, and that included a new energy strategy that was put out by the provincial government. So having considered all of those changes, as well as in particular the county memo, there's been some updates to the draft official plan and zoning bylaw that is brought forward in the appendices of the report, and is there for council to consider. Just going into the conclusion, the amendments, as I mentioned, consider the Ontario's Affordable Future Energy Report that came out very recently. Section 2 of the Planning Act, it's consistent with that. And also the Provincial Planning Statement 2024, which had new provisions. Basically, in the official plan, the only area that renewable energy projects such as industrial wind turbines or solar panel, fields of solar panels, or battery energy storage systems would be permitted would be the rural designation. All applications would require a zoning change and site plan approval. And that's what's made clear in the policy that's been drafted. Just a word about Ontario's Affordable Energy Strategy. It does recognize renewable energy as and competitive procurement through that process as one means of supplying energy, but the most important means outlined in that direction is the nuclear and hydroelectrical supply of energy. So to me, that's one of the more telling changes to the province's stands on this is that they recognize that renewable energy projects are one way of improving supply, but they recognize that the bulk of the supply will come from other sources. I think that's very helpful for council because that allows them to make decisions based on whether the locations are best for the township and for the surrounding area. So with that authority, which is a relatively new authority, council has a say in where these go. Whereas when councils were passing blanket not willing host resolutions, they were doing so because it was a signal to the suppliers that because council had no say in these locations back then, that don't even come here because there's going to be some concern expressed regardless of the project. And I don't want to speak for Southgate. Southgate does have one of those resolutions, but most of the ones that I was exposed to at that time when I was working in the field were along those lines. Because there is no authority for municipalities, then really they wanted to head things off at the past and just indicate that they didn't want these renewable energy projects in the municipality. I would say at that time too, there was a lot of information that was just coming about regarding the impacts of these projects on the environment, on people's health, and so forth. And a lot of that was evolving science. I don't know that that's completely evolved at this point in time, but the good news is that you can require all the studies that you need to ensure that a location is appropriate or to properly evaluate that location. And further to that, if you do make that decision, there's no appeal to the land use tribunal anymore. That doesn't say you couldn't get a court challenge or something like that, but as far as direct approvals to the land use tribunal, that wouldn't be allowed for a decision of council made on a zoning change for these sites. There is also the Grey County Climate Action Plan. They asked in their comments that the township policy be more consistent with that. I think that the amendments to the policy do that. Just to speak a little bit more about the evolving landscape, in June we received the staff received and circulated a procurement policy for the LT2, which is the next step for providing these projects. And in these, they've outlined the stages of these proposals. And under stage 3, there is still a municipal support confirmation step before you even get into the formal applications. So the procurer, the company that wishes to do the competitive tender for a site would have to outline to council its municipal consultation process. That means how will they speak to the public? How will they speak to you? Who will they involve in that? And then the council can make a decision on whether they want to give it support to proceed forward. It doesn't mean that they have the land use approvals. That's a total separate thing, but there is a new stage with the municipal support confirmation step. I think council may have ran into that with a battery energy storage system a couple of years ago that I personally was involved in, just at the early stages of coming on to provide some assistance. Just the last couple points to make, and I apologize for going on so long. It is a fairly complicated legislative landscape, and the idea here is to try and get it more clear for everyone, council, staff, and future procurers of the renewable energy projects. There is a distinction in the documents now that we've tried to make a lot clearer, and that is between people who use solar panels or windmills for their own purposes on their own site in order to help with their own energy needs and not supplying energy to a grid system. And we think is a very important distinction to make. It allows someone who wishes to put a solar panel on their roof or in a rural area provide a windmill to do that without having to go through the renewable energy process and to obtain a zoning change and so forth. That would allow building permits to be issued and them to be reviewed similar to an accessory building. We've run into a couple of proposals in rural areas where individuals have a lead on a windmill that would be reused on a property. Some of them very tall, and some of them, all of them were just to provide energy for their one particular farm or one particular business. And it wasn't clear in your zoning bylaw that those could be permitted as utilities for personal use because they were so big and large. And second, the building permit fee for those was $35,000 minimum with large deposits. And in order to encourage people to use their own source renewable energy and to allow for that process to occur, the thought was that we would make a very clear distinction between them in the policy that's in the official plan and in the zoning bylaw so that they can be considered as local utilities where they are subject to certain setback requirements and so forth, but they could be going forward without a zoning bylaw amendment. But any project that did need a renewable energy approval from the province and was going through the procurement process, they would still need a zoning amendment and a site plan approval. So you can see reference in that report to fees and charges. being changed for those private utility renewable energy projects, that would allow them to be processed a little easier. So if council sees fit to adopt the amendments that have been brought forward and the direction to change its fees and charges bylaw, I think you would be encouraging people to take their energy needs into their own hands, which I think is consistent with the provincial direction in that it can remove people from demands on the grid. And that is part of the problem that the province sees through to 2050, in that there'll be a 70% increase in energy demand. And taking people off the grid is every bit as that can be done without impacting other people, is every bit as important as adding power to the grid from renewable sources. Lastly, there was a suggestion in the county letter and in the provincial initiatives that these renewable energy projects, the larger ones, be allowed as on-farm diversified uses. We're not recommending that to council at this time. Council knows that there has been an open house on blanket on-farm diversified uses being permitted as of right in the zoning bylaw. The county hasn't yet added on-farm diversified uses, renewable energy projects as on-farm diversified uses yet. And so our suggestion is that not be included as of right OFDU just yet. The province is very clear that these projects are not to be allowed in prime agricultural areas where there's agricultural systems and particular tender fruit growing and that sort of thing. So I just, as in discussion with the group, we all felt that it was important not to include those just yet. If council felt like they wanted to, as they're reviewing on-farm diversified uses later on, they could do that. Or if the county did it in their official plan, then the township could do that as well. But we were only comfortable with the rural designation first, and then the zoning bylaw change and the site plan approval would have to go following that. I know that was a long and convoluted explanation. I'm happy to try and answer any questions, and appreciate council's time.
Thank you, Bill. And don't apologize for the length of the report. There's a lot of information in there, a lot of changes, as you indicated. Questions from council? Barb? Please. Oh, Monica, go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the comprehensive report. Just through you, Chair, to build. So just my understanding to the point that you brought forward just at the end with regards to future on-farm diversified uses, since energy projects are not yet permitted, as you mentioned, under OFDUs, I guess Southgate, we will be revisiting this as the county adjusts its official plan.
Through Mayor Milne to Councillor, yes, that's correct. It can be revisited later. The official plan amendment would have to be approved by the county. If they saw fit to include it, I guess they'd have to do that. We felt as a group that it just wasn't the time to make that argument and open that up, because it does open up prime agricultural areas, and just don't see quite how these could industrial wind turbines or larger solar fields, or even the battery energy storage, depending on how large they are, could be fit in as an OFDU. It just is a little counterintuitive at this point until we see more policy direction on it and more examples. So back when we provided this information to you, I think there was only the city of Ottawa that had done policy work. And in some of the provincial material sent around recently, there was Ottawa and one other municipality given as examples. I'm sure there are others, but we're still a little bit on the cutting edge here with this, given the new initiatives of the province. So taking that step to sort of say in the official plan that an on-farm diversified use could be one of these renewable projects that's supplying energy to people around them, I think was a little bit of a, even though they all need a zoning change anyway, it just, we were a little not comfortable with where that is right now in terms of how that might function.
May I have a follow-up, Mayor?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So just with regards to that point as well, which would lead into, I guess, the community awareness piece. Have we ensured that rural landowners, especially those in the affected rural designation, clearly understand how these renewable energies policies will impact their land use rights? Because if I recall correctly, I don't believe we received public comment.
Through Mayor Milne to the Councillor Singh Soares, that's absolutely correct. There were no public concerns. It is a blanket policy and blanket zoning across the township. So until sort of one happens in your backyard, it sometimes doesn't feel like it's something you need to worry about. And I would say that with council's full authority now to consider these and the direction that's in the plan, it's a little clearer as to how they might be processed. But how so yes, so far the public may not know that in a rural designation they could be allowed, but with any luck they do know that there would be a zoning change. There would be the public input received for site specific locations in those cases, so a notice would be given to the people who live within 120 meters. There'd also be a presence on the township website and a sign posted on the property. In addition, under the renewable energy approval process, they have to do a public consultation plan, and that public consultation plan comes to council for approval early on in the stage before the applications are final. And that's where you're asked to provide a municipal support resolution or not. And that would be based on what you're seeing as far as the kind of consultation they'll be doing.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you,
good.
Mayor.
Did you have a question, Barb? Go ahead.
I did, thank you. And through you, thank you, Bill. The length of your report was very helpful because you may have addressed, maybe got me over the fence on this. I do have, but you did raise some other things as well. So it's only to consider renewable projects, but not guarantee them, which that gives me some assurance that there's still, council can still say no. Our unwilling host is still intact for industrial wind turbines which is good because the height of those industrial wind turbines impact more than just the properties 120 meters from the property line. And you mentioned something which I didn't realize is that they're not permitted near fruit orchards, which to me kind of implies that perhaps it affects the pollinators and birds and things that help with pollinating those apple trees and grapes and things like that. So you have to imagine the impact on humans if it has an impact on wildlife. So thank you for providing yet another concern about industrial wind turbines. In the report, for the private and personal small wind generating devices, not the industrial, I'm not sure if I read it correctly, but that it would eliminate the building permit requirement. And the only area that I'm getting a frantically shaking of a head over from Ken. Thank you. Because solar panels separate from a structure or a wind turbine, or for personal use, solar panels on roofs would have a whole set of other building code requirements. So for those not able to see the shaking of heads, maybe I think Phil wants to chime in on that one through you, Mayor Milne.
Bill, you want to add something? Go ahead, please.
Through you, any solar panels that are mounted on a building require a building permit.
Thank you. So that's not changing. I still have concerns about making these even available, like more so the battery storage and the the industrial wind turbines, even on rural lands, because just because it's rural land doesn't mean it's not productive land. And a lot of our rural designations, you know, through tile draining have become great land, and the controversy around them. So I'm glad I have the assurance that this doesn't change the fact that council can still say no, and it can't be appealed other than maybe in court. Yeah, you alluded to one final, thank you, Mayor Milne. One final thing you alluded to, a future paving the way for a potential future IESO project coming down the pipe. Are we rushing into this in order to pave the way for a project that might be coming to council?
Oh, if I may, through Mayor Milne to Deputy Mayor DeBreen, if I said that way, I didn't mean to imply that there was one specifically. I meant to the procurement process in general. So in June this year, they issued a municipal guidance document. So I think probably because Southgate has had interest expressed in the past, that it's likely that will renew itself, pardon the pun, with this new procurement announcement. But I don't think there's been an specific inquiry for a renewable energy approval for at least a year now. So I'm not aware of anything pending. So no, it was meant to, because the provincial policy changed and they are encouraging these facilities in certain locations determined by council, and because there seems to be a procurement pending again, I feel like it's exactly the right time, I think, to get some sort of framework in place that you are comfortable with, so that you as a township are ready when these come forward. But there isn't one pending that I'm aware of, but unless Victoria or Phil or any of the staff have had something that we haven't chatted about. And the last thing I would say is that one thing that is in the policy that is fairly unique is it does say there, even in the rural designation, that if council wants a larger setback than may be required by the standards that come forward and isn't justified in a report, then you can require that larger setback from sensitive uses. So if there's fruit trees and pollination or a honey provider nearby or whatever, and you feel like you want to have a larger setback and a justification for a smaller setback isn't provided, then that policy initiative is in place. So I think it would help deal with some of the lingering concerns that I think all of us sort of share as to what the impact is on the natural environment of these, especially when you get, quite a number of them in a small area. So, the process is designed to let you deal with site-specific issues, and council, through its official plan, is making a statement that we recognize those site-specific issues. And in fact, if we're not comfortable with a larger setback or with a smaller setback, or even with the standard setback, we may require a larger one. And I got that information out of council back in March, April of last year, and that's been continued in this amendment.
Thank you, Bill. Ken?
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to add, in terms of some of the conversation that the team has had before we brought this before you, we went through the discussion that we had previously and over the course of time. And one of the things we wanted to make sure was that we were covering off a number of the concerns. And one of the debates that we had before we even put the report forward was, do we recommend to you to withdraw the resolution of an unwilling host? And where we landed was, as a group, we thought it was best to leave that resolution in place, because as Bill has pointed out, we're in a new regulation paradigm, that it was formerly the province Thus, the township took a position to be an unwilling host. Now the province is giving municipalities the ability to make these decisions. And what we're proposing to you is a framework that allows you to consider a planning application and make a planning decision at the end of the day. And that's the key thing, is that you have to make a decision based on the planning merits. And so, as Bill says, you can ask for bigger setbacks. You can take into account a variety of things. We tried to keep the policy and decision-making framework pretty open. But we thought it best to leave that resolution in because from my perspective, given the way the province has been going, I get a sense that if a bunch of municipalities push back and don't allow this, we could see this swing, the pendulum swing back, and all of a sudden the province takes control of this again. And by then removing that resolution, we actually are in a gap of a response. So better to leave it and still consider things through the planning process and cover ourselves on both sides. The one other thing I will add, and this goes back to something that Councillor Singsource was mentioning. As council is aware, we're looking at some changes to the official plan related to alternative notice and alternative ways of giving notice. And certainly one of the things that we've seen in researching some examples is that some municipalities are in certain circumstances, bypassing a public meeting for certain applications. From our perspective, keeping in mind that we're looking at a whole regulation system that's evolving, I just want to assure council that we're not going to be looking at something where there would be alternative notice or a privately held, well, not one related to an on-farm diversified use where it's local for an individual or a site. I'm speaking to the bigger side. We wouldn't be looking at that for alternative notice either. We would want them to do their public consultation and engage people.
Thank you, Ken. Go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you, Mayor Milne. Thank you, Ken. The reassure, we had that lengthy discussion about the consultation process and alternative means and the need to continue to do more than less. With regard to setbacks, because you mentioned it, that is actually reassuring that we can require arbitrarily a bigger setback. I want to just use an example of the wind turbine on Gray Road 8 that the blade broke, and the county road had to be closed for 3 days because it was built. When we had no say at the time, that was prior to 2013-14. They were just able to build it. And I'm glad to see that we can see the merits in making sure that they're not going to, fall on someone's home or across a roadway. And that we can require it regardless of what the minimum is based on your recommendation.
So through your worship, maybe I'll start, and then if Bill has something to add. I would be hesitant just to call it arbitrary. I would say that we would be taking a position that had a foundation in what we call Section 2, which is the idea, the principles that we all need to think about when we're making a planning decision, because that section applies to council, it applies to applicants, it applies to us. So for using your example, if we have that experience, then yes, we could couch it in the framework of Section 2 and say, well, we've had this experience. No, we want a greater setback because we have experienced this. And unless that applicant was able to bring something forward to say or justify to council's satisfaction that a lesser requirement would be prudent, then yes, you could. Caveated with, if they didn't like your decision, while they can't take it to the OLT, they could challenge it to the courts, but yeah.
Thank you, Ken. Joan, please.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I was just going to cut into, I kind of lost my train of thought because I had my hands up since Monica, but sorry, I know it's hard to see when you're sitting there and we're here. Bill, You mentioned something about specific location, that location that would protect the agricultural resources, health and safety, and the mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions. So, and then Ken mentioned something about that the province. So like, it's like if the province tell us to do it, then we can't push back or we can't make changes. And I mean, I still do have concerns. Deputy Mayor spoke about some of the stuff that I was going to talk about, and then you mentioned back about pollination and fruit trees and stuff. But in short, because the report was very long, I read it, and then while you were speaking, I kind of lost you along the way and lost some of what I had to say. In short, is it saying that we will have specific location, like the battery people that came, they can't just say, this is the land that we're going to purchase and we want it here, but it would be better planning and more mitigation of things that could affect us in the long run.
Bill, you
through-
want to craft an answer out of that?
Sure. No, I
Okay.
think I get where you're coming from. So we're only saying you would be only saying in your official plan that the rural designation. So those are the lands in the rural area, obviously, where technically the agricultural land base is not up to the quality of, say, a prime agricultural land. It depends on the classification of the soils and so forth, but there are quite broad rural areas where there's good agricultural land, but there are also some past severances that have been done. There's also more broadly permitted uses. Sometimes there's farm businesses, contractors' yards, things like that. It's a little more diverse rather than as far as, and recreational uses that are there. So that's the only area that they might be considered in a broad policy sense. They would still need to say, apply for a zoning change. They'd still need to address all the technical studies that are outlined already in your official plan and that you're allowed to ask for. And they basically have to make the case. The reason that it's only that designation is, and that's what the draft said back in April. It just said it in a kind of backward way. It said all the designations that weren't allowed, and the only one that it wasn't prohibited in was rural. So pursuant to county comments, we made it a lot clearer. Just rural, that you don't need to amend the official plan. You're not going to be in natural hazard areas. You can't be in prime agricultural lands where the sole, the main use of land is agriculture with supporting non-agricultural or agricultural related uses and on-farm uses. So not in there, not in residential areas, not even in the industrial park. It's primarily in the rural designation. And then they make their case on how they're going to go to the public and what studies they're going to provide to you and go from there. And as I said, the setback can be larger if council feels there are uses there that they need to protect, in particular natural uses. So bee pollination, all the bird habit areas, all those locations would be protected still through this new policy and through the new zoning changes. So I hope that answered it. I think what we're trying to make clear is that you do have a say in it, that you're only going to even consider a certain type of application for a certain part of the township. And even then, if you're going to make your case, you need to provide the studies. And if the council wants a larger setback, if they feel some uses are more sensitive than might be standard, then you can require that too. And I think you will look forward to cooperation from procurers because they'll want their project to go ahead and they'll do everything they can to provide you with the information you need. So it's a lot better process. I can recall the frustrations of council of old, and this is a lot better with a lot more local autonomy on it. So I don't want to give you all comfort, but and as Ken said, I think it's a good strategy to keep your past resolutions in your back pocket in case things start to go awry. I think the direction is pretty clear now. They do want these projects to go ahead in certain areas of all municipalities in Ontario, and it's an important part of meeting demand. And so that appears to be going to come forward to you, and I think this puts you in a position to be ready for them when they do come.
Thank you very much. I kind of like the title Unwilling Oaths, though. It rings nicely. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I'm glad you can appreciate the frustrations of old councillors. Monica, you have your hand up. Go ahead, please. And then I'll come back to Ken.
Thank you, Chair. So one of the greatest things about living in Southgate that I've learned is a lot about windmills. So I hope I can ask my question properly. So just through you, Chair, to Bill, when we're looking at small scale equity for private windmills and solar panels, are we confident that the fee structure is fair and accessible to residents who want to invest in small scale renewable energy?
If I may, through the mayor on that question, I don't think we're confident, because when we were faced as a group with the private windmills and they saw their permit fee, they basically the private windmills, they basically said that wasn't affordable for them. So I think if council sees fit to adopt these policies and move forward with the change to the fees and charges bylaw and put in place basically what would be hopefully the same fee structure for a private windmill as would be for a solar panel, because I think Phil can correct me if I'm wrong, there is a different charge for that and a lower charge for a solar panel. So yeah, I would be confident if council follows through with the change to the fees and charges bylaw, because I think the building permit fees, like a lot of municipalities for wind turbines, were put in to sort of back up those municipal support resolutions, in that it kind of made it, if you really wanted one back then, you had to start paying some pretty good fees to get it. So I like the idea of people having their own, this is a personal opinion, people having their own power, pulling themselves off the grid and taking care of their own needs. And that I think is consistent with the provincial plan to address the long-term demand. So the more people like your Mennonite community who take themselves off the grid and don't contribute to the demand, I think the better. So yeah, I would be more confident if council were to make a change based on recommendations from your CBO as to what an appropriate fee for a personal wind turbine would be.
Just a quick follow-up, Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
Just to that point, thank you, Mayor. To Bill, when would that type of recommendation or change be proposed? Is that something that would need to be done now or later?
I think Ken could have more information on it than I, but I believe under your notice bylaws and your fees and charges bylaw, you would have to have a public meeting. So I guess he would be suggesting that be done if you move forward with the resolution in that's in the recommendation. So it could and probably should be done sort of congruent with these going through the county approval process and through the to final approval and through the appeal period. So, but it's really up to council when you want to do that and if you want to do that.
Phil has a response, sir. Bill?
Yeah, under the building code, we have to give 21 days notice prior and then hold a public meeting before we can change the fees.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, Monica? Jason?
There's a lot of good information there. I was kind of on the fence at first, but to put it in a simple man's perspective, council still has the authority through the planning process to say no to a project. Is that Okay, that's what I thought, but yeah.
Yep.
So no, I'm comfortable with it. As far as I actually talked to Ken there a month or so ago about a Mennonite fella wanting to, for a personal one, I got no problem. The big industrial ones, no, but no, that's all I wanted to. As long as we still have the say, I'm good.
So maybe your worship, just for the sake of the camera's not picking it up, yes, I gave a nod to confirm, Councillor Rice. Yes, this sets up that, pardon me, that council is the deciding body for that application.
Thank you, Ken. Barb?
Thank you. And just to follow up of the chief building official, Phil Schramm, mentioned that there is a public consultation process for changing a fees and charges bylaw, but yet we have a bylaw, excuse me. And maybe Lindsay's going to respond to this. We have a bylaw to amend a schedule in the fees and charges on our agenda. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
The 21 days, that's just for building fees.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
So just to add through your worship,
Sure.
that comes from the building act.
Yeah. Yeah,
So that's why the two are different.
Thank you.
I didn't assume it was from the Phil Schramm School of Good Practice. Maybe, yeah. All right, good discussion, lots of information, and yes, I think Councillor Rice caught it right that we still have the authority to decide on these. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried.
Could
We
I get
got
a-
one. We got one more
Sorry.
report in the planning department, and then we'll break for a few
Mayor?
minutes.
Could I
Sorry,
get a recorded vote?
you didn't ask who opposed.
Recorded. Sorry.
You didn't ask who opposed, but
Well,
you-
I just. Wow, we got a lot of chairs here this morning.
yes.
Just had a request for a recorded vote, so I'm going to ask the clerk to take the poll.
Through you, Mayor Milne, the recorded vote called for staff report PL 2025-058 renewable energy project updates. Councillor Shipston is absent. Councillor Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Milne,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Delbreen,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor John,
No.
Councillor Singh Soares.
No.
By a vote of 4-2, that carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to the next report, we have a report here regarding the rail trail crossing agreement so that we can get that school underway. Someone care to move that? Barb, please. Thank you. Seconder, Jim? Ken?
Yes, thank you, your worship. This is probably one of the biggest pieces of our work plan agenda. Not just this agreement, but the school site and getting it through the planning process in general for this year. This is one of the biggest pieces, which is the agreement between the county and the township to exchange land for the rail trail crossings that are noted for Glen Elk phases 2 and 3, as shown in the report. I will say that the county and the township have been working together to get this done. The parameters of the agreement have been agreed to by both sides, and we are recommending that you approve in principle the agreement. We will then be able to send that support resolution up to the county. They are hopeful it will be on agenda sometime this month, and this one piece will unlock a whole bunch of other pieces, such as getting the conditions of the consent and minor variance underway, which will enable the site plan, which should then unlock the building permit. So let's just say that this is the first domino that allows the next dominoes to proceed, and we expect that to occur in rather rapid succession.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken. Questions, discussion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, planning staff. Let's recess. It is, what is it? 10:08. Let's come back at say 10:15 or thereabouts. Okay. Back to order. We have a report from the Public Works Department, and it's regarding the culvert supply tender award. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Jim, seconded by Monica. Thank you. John, welcome. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Through you, your chair. Staff released a tender for culvert supply for replacement of S34, which is included in the capital budget, as well as just general culvert supply for any culverts that we need to replace. Carson Supply was the lowest price with a total of $58,371.58 plus HST, and that's our recommendation to council that we go with them.
Okay, thank you, John. Any questions, discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, John. Any notice of motion? Not seeing any. Consent agenda is there. Anyone wish any of those removed for discussion or further direction? Barb?
Only because I'm normally, 12.1, only because there's a direction as opposed to just receive for information.
Okay. Any others? Okay, so the motion will read, be it resolved that council received the consent agenda dated today, save and accept item 12.1 for information. All those in favor? I think I had a mover and seconder, did I? No? Okay. I apologize. I need a mover and seconder for that motion. Barb and Monica, thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, 12.1. I need a mover and seconder. Barb, seconded by Monica, or Joan, please. Thank you. Barb?
I'm
Or do you want Kevin?
Yeah, I would just like Kevin's here, and it's just unusual that it's under consent.
Okay, I'll ask
thank you.
Kevin if you want to speak to your report, please.
Yeah, we just welcome or good day, everybody. The reason we put it under consent is because I had to write the report twice. So instead of writing the report twice, we figured it would get pulled and we would discuss it. But it is here that it is to go to the advisory committee in Grey County. So that's why it was written this way and presented this way.
Okay. Barb?
Thank you, and through you, and I just want to note, or thank you, you've been actively working on becoming AOD compliant. Now we're just going through that next step with the county that we weren't aware of. Kind of where we're going?
Yeah, that's basically it. We've a little bit slipped through the communication on what the Grey County Committee was to us and what we were to them. Under 10,000 population, I believe we didn't need the committee. We could do it on our own, but Grey County stepped up and did a committee for everybody, which then put us in the 10,000 above the 10,000 population. We've just kind of communication was lost a little bit between what their role was and our role. And just recently we've caught back up. We did get an email 3 weeks ago outlining what they want to see from us. So we're just catching back up on stuff that we started back in 2020.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Any other questions, discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. General announcements. Anybody have any? Barb?
I certainly do. What a weekend it was. I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Canada Day for yesterday and comment that we started off in Dundalk and had the Junction Community Initiatives Canada Day Connects. It's their 6th annual. It was attended, well, they served over 250 meals. We would say that throughout the afternoon, there were over 200 residents and guests that came through enjoying line dancing and music and great food. There was the the Egremont Optimist Car Show and the anniversary barbecue. Congratulations to our economic development officer and her team for being out there promoting our anniversary. And I think there's going to be an announcement about who won the gift basket. But then there was the barbecue, as I said, the agility dog demonstration, and the fireworks this year were outstanding. So congratulations to the volunteers that came and put all of that on for Southgate from coast to coast, Dundalk to Holstein. It was a great day.
Excellent. Thank you, Barb. And yes, congratulations to all the, and thank you to all the organizers. For greater certainty, the mayor was not line dancing. Just want to be clear about that. Monica, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to echo the sentiments of Deputy Mayor, just wanted to wish all Southgate and beyond a very happy Canada Day. And I did attend the Holstein car show with my husband and family. They loved it. We had extremely wonderful burgers. So nothing like Holstein burgers. And also really great cars. And then we also headed down to the Junction Initiatives Canada Day at the Frank McIntyre. It was a lot of fun, definitely well attended. And also after or before or after some of the food was served, everyone jumped into the pool. That I believe, I hope I'm not mistaken to say that Jackson Photography, they had sponsored that. So, I mean, when I got there, it was packed. Like we almost couldn't find parking. So it was a great time of fun, music, games, community spirit, everyone together, and everyone dancing together. I saw Deputy Mayor dancing as well, which is always great. But other than that, the food did run out and they had to get more. So just congratulations on such a wonderful, well-attended, well-organized events all throughout Southgate.
Thank you, Monica. Joan, do you have your hand up? Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Just a little correction there, Councillor Soares. The swim was sponsored by JCI and the Jackson Sisters Photography, so it was a free swim for the community, which was really, really good. JCI had 100 people that RSVP, but we still made sure that we could and always try to feed over 200 people, but then we had 250, so it was a tight one, but it was great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Joan.
Thanks,
Okay, anything
Joan.
else?
Oh, just saying thanks to Joan for that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, we'll move on to bylaws. You see the bylaws are there. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anybody wish any of those removed for further discussion? Barb?
Not removed, but can we vote on them separately?
You'd have to remove them to vote on them separately.
Then I would like to remove 14.3, 5, and 6. No, sorry, just 5 and 6. 14.5 and 6.
Sorry, so you want the OPA for renewable energy sources and the Grey County Rail Trail Crossings agreements?
No, sorry. 14.5.
Okay.
I get that.
14.5 and 14.6 both have to do with the renewable energy sources. I'm thinking the pages that you're looking at online are missing one, maybe, or that
Oh.
you're looking in front of you.
I just want the renewable energy.
Yeah, so that's
Bylaws.
14.5. Sorry, just don't pay attention to the paper copies in front of you. 14.5 and 14.6.
14.6 is the rail trail crossing?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm looking.
Yeah, sorry. This
Okay,
is an
so-
old version. I didn't realize that. Sorry.
So the motion will read, be it resolved, the following bylaws dated today, save and accept items 14.5 and 14.6.
Yeah.
Be read first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation and entered into the bylaw book. I need a mover. Jim and Joan, thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Bylaw 14.5. do you want them both together or separately?
They could be both together, I suppose. I just want to vote on them separately, and I'll call for a recorded vote.
Well, we might as well do them separately then. 14.5. So the bylaw is there for the, well, I'll never find it on my screen now, but that's the renewable energy.
Yep, so 14.5 is bylaw 2025-080, which is official plan amendment 1-24 and OPA 5 renewable energy sources.
Okay.
So we just need mover
Mover
seconder
and
first,
second,
yeah.
mover and a seconder. Nobody's, Jason and Barb will second. Okay. A recorded vote has been called.
Yep, so a recorded vote has been called for bylaw 2025-080, OPA 5 renewable energy sources. Mayor Milne,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor DeBreen,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor Ferguson,
Yes.
Councillor Shipston is absent, Councillor John,
No.
Councillor Singh Soares.
Yes.
By a vote of 5-1, that carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And likewise, the final bylaw 14.6, item 14.6.
So item 14.6 is bylaw 2025-081, which is the zoning bylaw amendment for file C 2020-24 and OPA 1-2024 renewable energy sources.
Okay. Someone care to move that, please? Jim, seconded by? Jason, thank you. Madam Clerk, would you take the poll, please?
Yep. So a recorded vote was called for bylaw 2025-081. Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Councillor John,
No.
Deputy Mayor DeBreen,
Yes.
Councillor Singh Soares,
Yes.
Councillor Shipston is absent. Mayor Milne,
In favor.
Councillor Ferguson,
Yes.
by a vote of 5-1, that carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now, we do have a closed meeting. I will read the motion. Be it resolved that council proceed into closed session at 10:28 in order to address matters relating to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. The subject is, the specific subject is acquisition of land update, and that all those remain in attendance. All those required remain in attendance. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Barb and Jim. All those in favor? That is carried. Closed session. Okay, we are now back in open session and I can declare that we only discussed the item that was listed on the closed meeting agenda. Confirming bylaw. Someone care to move that, please? Jason, seconded by Monica. Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Motion to adjourn. Barb and Jim. All those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.